Hello, Mariah. How are you
Lovely.
today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah. Wait, tell me about your full moon ceremony last night that I missed.
Yeah, well,
Uh-oh. Was it a bomb?
it,
Did not happen.
yeah. I mean, hit or miss. I had some people over and I did a lot of card readings online for people.
I saw that you and Chelsea had your
Yeah,
specials up there, which was awesome.
yeah,
If I would have known, I would have just called you, but I was two sheets in the wind by that time. I was like, nah, big day. I'm done.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Sure. And like, so there was a lot of like themes and consistencies with a lot of people with their readings, as far as like relationships and friendships and things kind of dropping away, and like people really freaking out about that. And like, me kind of just reassuring them that things are happening for a reason. And when there's chaos in your life, it's really just the universe kind of opening more doors for you. And there was a lot of patterns as far as like everyone's life is kind of just in turmoil right now, and everything feels like it's falling apart, and everyone's kind of freaking out about that. And been like, well, it's been this way for 8 years or 11 years, or it's been this way for a decade, so why all of a sudden now am I so unsure of this? And I'm like, well, because the cycle has ended, so it was
Listen to our July podcast. Or
yeah,
yeah, listen to the last podcast we did. Yeah.
exactly. So it was a lot of like, reiterating that. And then the children were being wild and crazy and not really listening. And, going to my roommate and asking them for something, and then coming to me because they didn't like the answer. And so there was like miscommunication, and it was just
Full moon
really
energy. It sounds like a full moon
energy.
energy.
And then I was like, by the end of it, I was like, okay, well, I was like, well, maybe I'll just get some dishes done, do some clearing in the house, like clear some energy. And I dropped a bowl of like top ramen noodles, and it just splashed everywhere, got in my hair, all over my outfit,
Oh my
like
God.
between my toes, girl. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, I'm calling it a night, ladies. Like, I'm just going to bed right now. Like, I'm done. You know what I mean? So I took a shower and did all that. And then my neighbor called me, and she was like, don't forget to take out the trash. And it was like close to 11 o'clock by that time.
Mm,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
ready for this night to be over. So I didn't actually get to like have the bonfire and do the things that I wanted to do. But that's fine, because you can still use the energy tonight, and
Oh yeah.
a little bit. So I think I'm gonna write down, what some things I want to release, and some patterns out of my life that I want to let go of, and sit by the fire and, give it a go tonight, and we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? You can't be mad about that. But
No, I think it's a great idea.
yeah,
Because honestly, last night I kept, I was just telling Mariah earlier, I have some company coming over. So I was like, I was, what's the word? I wasn't in the best mood of doing it, but I stayed up a little bit later trying to get some things done. And I kept thinking, well, it's getting dark out. The moon has to come out by now. I'll look. And there was no moon. I couldn't see it anywhere. And I'm like, where? And I went out in the street, because sometimes when it's really big and it's really low, I can see it from this one angle over here. So I was like, I couldn't see it. So I think it was like 10, almost like 10 o'clock or later, that I got a glimpse of it through
yeah,
these trees. Because I think you had said that it's really close to the earth. So I was thinking maybe that's why it makes sense now that further away it would show up earlier in the sky, right? So the closer it is, it would take a while. And
yeah,
then I thought, well, if I wake up in the middle of the night, which I always do, I'll peek out and see if I can see it. And I did see it, and it was really yellow,
mm,
and it was big, but it took forever to come out. And I was kind of like, and it was like 80 degrees last night. I don't know, 75 or whatever. And like, so a bonfire actually would be better in the winter anyway. So
yeah, yeah,
whatever. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that. Probably like a fire hazard now. You probably get called by your neighbors or something.
uh,
Um, but I'll be out there sweating and writing your notes
right,
and stuff.
yeah,
But so it was, I just kind of like verbally said something, but I didn't have time to like focus on something more, and I wanted to.
Right.
I had all
Yeah.
these plans. I was going to go to your house, and another friend said, "Oh, I thought you wanted to do this." She's into sacred tobacco, and
Oh,
yeah, and she gave me this. I guess she snuffs it. Okay, now I'm such a drug lightweight, like any kind of, and I'm saying drug, but like
right.
I've smoked a cigarette when I was younger. I've smoked some cigarettes when I was younger. I should say some because I went through a period and then, but only when I was partying, right? And at the clubs or whatever, when people used to do that. Um, in the 80s and 90s. And then I just started smoking marijuana, and it helps me sleep, it helps me with my hot flashes, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so she has this little, it's like a, she gave this to me. It's like a little snuffer thing. And you put it in your nose and then you're like, you snuff it. I don't know. I'm
Huh.
confused. But anyway,
I
um,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, it's sacred tobacco. So it's like ground tobacco. And she gets it from this Indian person on an Indian reservation somewhere. And she gets like, it's a website she sent me, and she gets all these different ones do different things. Some are for anxiety, some are for sleep, lifting mood, very similar to marijuana, Um, and she was like, I was like, oh, that'd be a great night to do it. Of course, that was like a week ago when I was like in the
Right.
mood, but
Yeah.
I was like, no, there's no way.
Yeah.
No way
Yeah.
I'm doing it tonight. I just, yeah. And then I thought about all the crazy, then I thought it's funny that you mentioned your kids going crazy because I was thinking about last night going, wow, with this kind of full moon, I would think when they talk about people coming to the hospital or having accidents or doing something, and you had like things were tripping on things and the kids were crazy. I mean, so it was full moon energy.
Full
Yeah.
moon. But I think the whole lesson in all of this is like being okay with the chaos, right? Like even though we had the plans to do like this ceremony and this ritual and like, I wanted to go into like deep channeling and like get some good messages out and like all of this stuff, like nothing worked out. It went complete to the opposite, like chaos. And I was just like, well, at this point, I'm just throwing my hands up going, okay,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
it,
exactly.
there's nothing that I could do about the situation and whatever, So
Exactly.
I, for me, the lesson is just being okay with, because I'm a Virgo, right? And so I like structure, I like order, I like things, I like labels to be faced a certain way, you know what I mean? So I have to be okay with everything not working out, the way that I had intended and planned it to be, and knowing that, even giving this message to people that it's important to know that even if you can't do your spirituality or your rituals or whatever the way that you are originally intended to, spirit's very forgiving, right? And like
Oh.
they're very like, malleable in the way of, like you can use the energy for more than one day. So just because it didn't work out last night doesn't mean you can't do it tonight or even tomorrow night, or even
Mhm.
before if that you can't do stuff on a certain day or whatever. But it's important to realize that everything's just about intention. And yes, the moons amplify things, and yes, they help things, and the energy is kind of more intense and when that happens. But if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Still do your ritual anyways. Still do whatever anyways when you can. And if your life is so chaotic and if the full moon is just really cleansing and thrashing through a lot of things, like be okay with that. Go with the flow. Pretend it's like a river and like throw your hands up. You're just in the raft and you just need to go with the flow of it, because if you try to swim upstream and you don't got a paddle, you're fucked. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just I think that's the important lesson, is like the chaos and the energy is super intense right now, and to not be so hard on yourself if and when things don't work out, because they're not in our control.
Well, and I guess that's a good segue for everything. Like, yeah, I mean, in general,
Yeah.
because you think about the full moon too, it's like, it's new beginnings, right? It's new beginnings with the new moon, and then it's letting go with the full moon, right? So sometimes we're still in our soup or in our life, like busy. Like I spent the last 3 days, like doing all of this kind of menial grunt work. I mean, it pays
Right.
my bills, but I had to do it, and I hyper focused and powered through it because I wanted all this free time later on. So I didn't spread it out. So I wasn't really like in the mindset to even kind of pay attention to like what I really wanted to do and say
Right.
and let go of, even though I kind of had an idea.
excuse me.
So I think that sometimes we don't even know until after it's passed,
Right.
like because the energy has to like kind of like hit you and then shift you. Because if you didn't pay attention to the new moon or the full moon, either one, you would just walk through life and you wouldn't even recognize that you're in a cycle
Right.
of new beginnings, letting go, new beginnings, letting go, right? So it's and I think so I remember walking across the street in my pajamas because I was looking for it.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say I just said out loud because I was like, I don't have time to do anything. So moon, I'm just gonna do this and let go of this. At the time, this is what I was thinking about. So I just figured, and anything else that doesn't serve me, because I was just sort of making it general, thinking at least I get that out of it. But it
Right.
doesn't have to be like this big fancy thing because sometimes you don't know. And with this one, whoo, it's interesting. You got a lot of relationship stuff because that's what I think has been like. I had a dream last night
Yeah.
that, oh my God, it was I I have been, I go through cycles of friends and a lot of it's, I'm 54. I've had cycles in high school, then I had cycles after high school, then you get married and then you have your husband's friends, and you have cycles, and then your kids go to school and then you have cycles of those friends, and then you go to, and I've had lots of cycles of friends. Probably the best friends I've made, I would say friends, actual friends, because
Mhm.
those cycle of friends are more like you're in a situation together. So you kind of like make friends with these people, but you might not have met them otherwise, right? Like your kids' friends and stuff like that,
Yeah.
play dates and whatever. And then, but through this work and through the courses I've taken, stuff are probably, I've made the closest people I've ever met in my life. A lot of them don't live here. In fact, 99% of them do not live here, and they're all different ages and different backgrounds, but we have the common thread
Right.
of the work, the work and what we're interested in and all that. And so they're kind of like friends that I drew to me because they're of interest. But even at that point, this energy has got me to recognize that because I'm just not made up. My makeup is not to have a lot of friends. Some people have like hundreds of friends and they'll be like, let's go to the movies, and like 20 people show up and you're like, oh, I thought we were just going to the movies. You like had no idea that it was like, it's always this event. It's always
Yeah.
lots of people. And I've never been like that. I've always liked uh small groups or even like a one-on-one because I feel like you're always jonesing for position, you're like joxing for position, like you say
Right.
something quick and then you say something quick and it just feels like I don't know, I like substance. So I I've been thinking a lot about the I think what happened when I started really collecting my friends that were tight, and I'm sharing this story if anybody out there like is kind of feeling this. This started around 2008. Well, Pluto, no, I'm no, it started around 2011. Now I've talked about Pluto going into Capricorn in 2008, but around 2011, 2012, I got really hooked in with some tight ones, other mothers who had daughters with anxiety. Okay.
Yeah.
Then that went away. School was over, blah, blah, blah. Then I started getting into the spiritual work, and I I hooked onto some people that I adore and I'm still friends with. But I've noticed my codependency because I'm not somebody who normally has lots of friends. So it's like when I found one and we had the same thing, I was just like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think I should do? I don't know. Like, what are you doing? Everything was like I had to run. I was noticing I was running everything through these people. I was becoming in my version of my life experience codependent. And I stepped back and I realized it one day, and I've looked at all my relationships along the way where I've had that happen, and it's been several times. But mostly with this Pluto in Capricorn, for me, it's in a position where I um it's in my house of spirituality. So it's a little like I don't know like what I'm doing. So I'm always trying to like, what do you think? Like I said, and when decided one day, I think I'm relying on too many of these people that I've connected with for what I'm supposed to be doing. So I pulled away, and then I started making my own decisions and I started feeling a lot better. But I realized that when I did that, these relationships started like, the people started feeling like, well, what are you doing? Why are you pulling away? You're not as chatty, you're not as talkative, you're not as, because I think in a way the relationship was codependent. They were depending on me doing this, and it was like this dance we were doing, and I broke it. And it was a lot of freedom for me, but there's a lot of grief and sadness too. So I feel like this relationship thing is big with a lot of people. Relationships, like, I don't know, maybe it's relationship with your work, maybe it's relationship with your body, maybe it's relationship with other people. But what I decided was, I don't want to lose these relationships. I just need to transform them. I need to like change the way I go about relating to these people, or how I catch myself if I'm getting too wrapped up in like, because it's fun, you know, and you're in a good friendship and you're like, blah, 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 and then you're like, oh, this is a great idea and that's a great idea. But then if you're not moving forward to implement it, you're just kind of holding yourself back, waiting for this other person to show up for you to do it with you. You know what I mean? Like it was, I was going through that. And
Yeah.
so I recognize it's interesting. That's why I was mentioning, and I kind of told a long story, but hopefully there's something in there, because I think I want people to have a light at the end of the tunnel, because
Right.
I think this idea like of relationships changing, and they are changing. We can't
Yeah.
even stop them from changing because we're changing. We're
Yeah.
being forced to change the way we go about doing things. And this moon was a big catalyst for that. It's just this whole energy. It's like you said, it's at the end of its cycle. And that's why this person's like, well, everything was fine until 2008. And I was doing my thing.
Uh,
And then all of a sudden it's the end of a cycle. There's grief and sadness. You want to hold on tight. You don't want to let it go. Well, instead of thinking I have to let it go, how about we look at how we can transform it by showing up in a different way?
right.
And if the relationship can't handle that, then that's when you have to let it go. But
Right.
I myself personally don't want to just be like, done, done, done. I don't want that
Right.
with some
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I heard on I was listening to this chick, her name's Bahati Life on YouTube, and she does a lot of astrology and mystical stuff as well. And her main focus the other day was that we are um in the end of one era and we're kind of going into a new one, but there's a grieving process within that, and everybody deals with grief a little bit differently. And so it's about being open and understanding that we're all grieving right now, and we're all kind of losing something within our life that was once important to us, and to have the understanding that like everyone's processing things a little bit differently right now. And my way of grieving is different from your way of grieving, and it's just having that understanding and that awareness that we're all going through it, and we're all just kind of like little toddlers fumbling around trying to figure out how to play with this new energy. And that within itself is intense and hard, and people don't really understand it, or they have a hard time with it, or if they do understand it, they're not really sure how to implement these ideas and these things. And that's why I think having talks like this and doing the Mystical Power Hour is super important right now, because like we're feeling it, everyone's feeling it, you know what I mean? And like it's hard to explain sometimes, and I think that the more we get comfortable within the uncomfortableness of it all, the easier it will get for the entire collective.
Yes. And the other thing is, I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, how I think it's so easy too for people to fall into victimhood around this. One, victimhood, and I think the other one is um, anger.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that, because what I'm noticing is the dissolving of illusion in my
Mm,
life. A lot of it, like,
uh,
and with it, yeah, within relationships, which are contributing to the idea of transforming the relationship. And so I have this in my personal life, like with my family, not my actually probably my whole it's funny, I laid in bed last night and I thought, who in my life is not on my list of people that I'm having sort of this new way of looking at the relationship, or going, that no longer serves me, I'm not doing that anymore. And I couldn't think of one person. My husband, my daughter, my sister, for sure, my coworker, um, my friends, like I kept thinking, there's very few people. You're, you're probably not. Well, we don't spend a lot of time together, but like, but these, I'm talking about people that I've spent a lot of time together that I've noticed that I'm like going, you're walking around in victimhood, complaining about all this. I'm done. I'm done. Like I can see now what I used to do. I used to just be like, "Oh, let me try to help you. Let me try to help you."
Yeah.
Well, that was my first step. That's step one. Then the next step was, wait a second. I think that I want this relationship to be different. I don't need I don't need to be, I don't know. It's like I think the reason I'm saying this and I'm sharing is because I don't know either. And I
Right.
think I think the other thing is I don't want people, so there's anger and victimhood that I'm seeing a lot of people go into when they're like, well, this person's like this and I never knew they were treating me that way. And now I'm recognizing it for what it is. And no, don't
Yeah.
do that because it's not about them. It's about
Yeah.
you allowing them to do that to you. And I've had a lot of that happen lately where, and it'll literally be like I'm driving in the car and I'll be like, oh my God. It's like, because sometimes when your mind is like relaxed, it'll come in. And it was
Yeah.
like, felt like spirit was next to me with a brick and just went bam. And I
Mhm.
just went, oh. And they're like, yeah, you can finally see now what we've been trying to show you. But
Right.
you've been creating this story around this person that's this because you want it to be that. And that's not the truth. And so the truth is being shown, and then you're like pissed, you're angry, you're like, I can't believe they're doing that to me. And I'm, no, it's not about them. It's about what you are allowing them to do. And if you can do that, then you can transform the relationship to something that works for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to get rid of it all. And some of these you can't get rid of. I mean, I can't get rid of my boss and my coworker. I can't get rid of my husband and my daughter. I don't want to. So,
It's about how your perception changes your perspective.
that's a that's going to be the title. I'm going
Yep.
to write that down.
How
How your
your perception
perception. Mhm.
is your perspective.
Okay, I like that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
that's literally what's happening right now. You know what I mean? And depending on how you perceive the certain situation, will be how, what your perspective on that is. And if you're willing to look at that and change your perception of it, then your perspective of it can change in the long run. You know what I mean? Just like how you're doing, you're like, I want these relationships to stay in my life, but I need to change the codependency part. I need to change this part. And it takes a really wise soul to really like look at that and understand that. And I if a lot of people could have a better understanding of that and realize that this is what's going on collectively, then I think it would make things a lot less chaotic for everyone. You know, uh, in the
yes.
you know what I mean?
Have compassion that everybody's feeling, like you said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, because everybody's feeling it. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I'll be like grocery store or driving or whatever, and I'll look at you're going through something, like
Yeah.
because everybody's going through it. It's just a matter of where
Right.
it's at in their life. And
And how
yeah, so we and humans we're so easily victim. We're so easily victim. So
yeah.
easy to fall into that.
And some people don't have good coping skills. They'll turn to drugs or alcohol or self sabotage or self mutilation. While
Mhm.
others of us will be like, all right, let's sit by the fire and do a full moon ceremony or whatever.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
saying that anything's like right or wrong or my perception is better than sorry, I heard something that my perception is better than your perception. But I think it's just really about the individual person and how they process information, how they accept information, and then what they're willing to do about that in order to change and benefit their lives. Some people aren't changing and benefiting their lives, they're making it worse, right? And they're going
Mhm.
in this spiral, and it's like chaos, 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 chaos. While others of us are really going, okay, let's take a pause, let's take a breather, let's really look at what is actually happening, let's get the bigger picture of it, let's see where we can change our perception of it, and let's move forward. So
Yeah.
it just kind of depends on what spectrum you're on right now, because everyone's going through the same thing. It's just, how are you coping with it? How are you dealing with it? Like, are you willing to ask yourself these hard questions and make the changes that are necessary? Are
Yeah.
you willing to take a step back and be like, okay, like, I hear you, I see what you're talking about, like, yeah, I'm getting a little triggered by this, this has been a pattern that's been showing up in my life, but I'm actually ready to listen, and I'm actually ready to be like, okay, I can see your side of it, and I can see where my part is in this. I'm going to take these steps in order to, better myself, which will in turn better the situation, which will in turn then better, hopefully, us, as a
Yeah.
unit, or as, a family, or,
Wherever it's
whatever.
at.
Yeah, wherever it's for you. And it's being highlighted for everyone at the same time. And that in itself is intense, not to mention everything that's going on in the world and all of the information that's coming out, and, the whole CERN thing and everything else that's on top of everything, you know what I mean? So it's just, cherries on top here, you know what I mean? So it's just doing your best to really take that moment. And if you need to decompress, and if you need a breather, and if you need to scream in a pillow, like, do it, but do it safely. Don't do it full self-mutilation way, because then you're just attracting more of that kind of energy, and the energy is super intense right now. So it's just really to, like, take a breather and just be like, take a chill pill, you know what I mean, and just really look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a lot.
It
But
is.
and the other thing is it it takes time, and that's the other thing I've been really um thinking about humans, lately. We're so we want things like instant gratification, oh, there, if you've had a pattern for so long, it takes time to, it's kind of like that analogy, which is a great one. I love. It's like, imagine like a big cruise ship, right, in the ocean, and they're trotting along. Well, they just don't stop and turn, you
Right.
know. They have to slow down,
Yeah.
stop, and then it takes a while to get going.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It takes time for, because I think too, people forget that just because you change, okay, it's like a double-edged sword. We know if we change our frequency and our energy and our focus, and we let go of things open up for us. Things start coming in. You're moving the energy around.
Yeah.
And so as doing that, you're also affecting the people around you, because energy, like we're all in a soup of energy together with our auric fields bumping up against each other, right? So we're affecting others with our vibration, but they affect us with their vibration too. So it's like a double-edged sword. And I think that if you walk around thinking that everybody, everybody should change because you need to change, that's wrong. You just need to change, and everybody else will change around you. It'll start happening. It's just, but it'll be like this sort of like, I always feel like it's like one step forward, two steps back, kind of thing. It just takes a while to get there. It's like, then you'll 3 steps forward and 2 steps back instead, and you're 1 more step ahead. Like, it's just this sort of, it sucks though, because you like want it now, and then spirit always gives you, like, you think you've done it right, and then they give you little examples and practices. It's like a practice test. It's cool. Did you really study? Well, yeah, I did. And then you're like, oh yeah. And it's like, what do you remember? And sometimes it's like years ago, something will come up that, okay, oh yeah, so this is my dream. Okay, I'm gonna share this. And then, so I have this dream last night, because I was thinking, okay, I didn't do me. I remember laying in bed going, okay, full moon, maybe I'll have some, you can help me with some dreams tonight. Maybe I'll have something really profound or whatever. I have to work on this one, because I was talking about earlier, I'm generally not somebody, I've always been sort of individual. I've always been on my own a lot. I'm comfortable with that. I do like to have friends, but I've always felt like I've always wanted to try to fit in, and it's easy for me. I really don't have a problem making friends. It's just, it's a lot of work sometimes to keep friendships up, right? Okay. So I had this dream, and I felt like I was in high school. And there was a couple people in my dream. One was from high school and one was from recent. They both had different haircuts and they looked different. So I don't know. Anyway, and there was all these other people that were like people in the background that were friends of mine, but they were those people that never really, like, if someone's hurting you, they never speak up. They're just those people. Right. Like 4 or 5 of them. I was at a birthday party. Oh. And somehow I was ostracized by something. Oh, I know. Okay, I am okay as a person in general and as a healer and life coach, whatever. I can be direct. I'm definitely not somebody. I'm not the soft. Someone wants a softie. It's not me. I'm pretty like I get the information. I'm pretty clear cut about it. If I'm soft around the. I'm not gonna. I have a friend who says, I really like the way you talk to me. Sometimes you say something that would normally really hurt me, but this the way you say it feels really okay. And I remember thinking, and she's also the friend that when I first met her, a friend of mine from high school said to her, hey, if just, I'm going to introduce you to Dana. I just want you to know if you become friends with her, if you ask her a question, she's going to be honest. So, she just cuts to the chase.
Right.
And I remember, and she told me this, and I remember thinking, that's how they see me. I didn't realize they saw me that way, and so I was thinking, I better just be kind of cautious of it. But what I'm noticing is instead of beating myself up about it, that it can be a gift. I just have to be the fact that I practiced for so many years. And sometimes I'll say permission to be honest and direct, before I say it. But I think that therein lies a superpower in a way if you're using it for the right way. Okay. And if you have compassion behind it, that's all I can do is have compassion behind it for the person. But at this party, all these people, not all these people, but these two particular ones, they were saying to me, well, you told me this and it didn't work out. And one of them was going to sue me. And I was like, I'm not a doctor. I just told you what I was getting intuitively. Yeah. But I was like, gosh, she wants to sue me. She used to be a friend of mine. And then the other one was like, sitting with me going, well, you've kind of like pushed everyone's, you pushed them and you've made them, you kind of are kind of direct with them and, kind of poked them, and sought their soft places or whatever. And I was like, oh, so I remember sitting on this like, but what was interesting is that the whole time they were doing it to me, and it was very short, it was like one of these fast rooms. I remember thinking, I'm not even crying. I should be crying. I'm not crying. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I remember, and then it turns into this weird thing where I go in a parking lot because I'm walking to my car and it's dark and these two guys come up to me and they look kind of suspicious and they say, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I said something stupid like, I'm going to the store to get some beer. Right. And then I was like, I got in my car really quick and I locked the doors and I ran off and I had like a pickup truck or something. I don't know. It was all weird. But the point of the dream was, even though I was sad and I recognized that these guys were upset about something that didn't work out that I had said, or that our relationship was just really not. The other thing that I thought was interesting is she had all of her presents out. And I'm usually a really good present giver. And there's all these presents out and she had the boxes open and everybody's presents was really cool. And I looked at the one I brought and it was like a box of chocolates. And I'm thinking, that's really lame. Yeah. And I should just grab those chocolates and take them with me because she doesn't like me anyway. But you know what I mean? But it was like, I think the point is, it was telling me, because I was thinking, okay, what is that saying to me today? It's saying to me that it's okay to let go of relationships that no longer serve me. And they're not participating with me anymore. They don't want to. Right. So why am I so worried about being part of the group? Right. And the fact that I wasn't really upset, I was more just kind of like put off and kind of sad, but I wasn't like crying and like, oh no, please, none of that. Right. That it says a lot about like, the fact that it's going to be okay, to let go, because I felt like as I was leaving, I'm just going to go make new friends or I'm going to find somebody who's okay with the way that I'm direct or whatever. But yeah. So anyway, that was my dream. Did you have any weird dreams or anything?
Me personally, no. My girlfriend had some kind of crazy intense dreams and we were being passionate in her dream and
my good one.
Yeah. And my hair was like being kind of like vacuum sucked into my closet. And she was like, "What the heck," and she said she was like looking at like what was like, taking my hair or whatever. And there was this like demon figure that was in this black flowy dress with like these bright yellow eyes. And that the
Ooh.
like came inside of me. And then I stopped the lovemaking and like I held her by her throat and like put her up against the wall. And like I was trying to like murder her. And she said that she kind of had like an outer body experience and she like was like witnessing this happening. And then she like energetically did this like boom or whatever. And then like it all just kind of dissipated. And then
Mm.
my roommate and the kids and my roommate's boyfriend, and we went on some trip somewhere into like this log cabin. And the kids were playing, and my roommate's boyfriend was building a tent, and the three of us girls went inside this like kind of broken down log cabin. And there was this like weird salt circle in the middle, and like I guess a door flew open. And Chelsea, my roommate, and I didn't witness it or see it, and we were like kind of off to the corner. And she like heard a voice that said, come in, and stupidly went inside the door.
Of course.
And apparently it like slammed shut and we couldn't like get to her. And then the kids like started destroying things, like ripping butterflies apart and killing frogs and like doing craziness. And long story short, like the log cabin burnt up and she couldn't get out. And she literally like just perished in the thing, and like we couldn't get to her and stuff. So it was two different dreams like that all happened kind of in like her demise and her death, and she was a little freaked out about it. And I was like, babe, I'm never gonna murder you, so I'm sorry about that, but you know what I mean. So, and we kind of process it and like kind of get the message behind it and see like what was really happening, and like where her mind is. And like there's just been a lot of weird and sorry, let me
Yep.
just about like looking at that energy and like really like kind of diving in and being like, what does this represent? What does this mean? And, we wound up going back to bed after we had talked about it. Cause I mean, it was intense. Like it woke us up in the night,
Yeah.
We go back to bed and like, there was this black beetle in my hair and like all of this like weird energy stuff kind of happened. And the following morning she opened her wallet and there was ashes in her wallet. And we were like, what the heck? So it was really a lot of like super intense stuff. And we were just kind of, like trying to piece it all together. And, energy has been really intense and things have been really intense. And, it's interesting how things are showing up. And, it's kind of, I don't want to say like freaking everybody out because it's definitely like different, but I think it's just looking at like, okay, well, what does this mean to you? And like, how does this, the symbolism of a black beetle, like, what does that mean? And why was it in my hair at that time? And yada, yada, yada. So, it's just kind of like being a Sherlock Holmes and kind of piecing together all of the pieces that like not only we as humans are experiencing, but like what is spirit trying to tell us within the moment, and like why are these things coming to us? And like I don't interpret dreams very well, but it's just kind of like looking up like, okay, black beetle spiritual symbolism, and then doing the research on that, or like seeing repeating numbers and stuff and looking up, okay, what does this angel number mean? And like, what does this mean? And like giving yourself the tools and the information to like kind of do your own research and see what things are meaning to you. I mean, they're popping up for a reason. And like, to kind of just take a step back and like take a breather and like look at things and be like, okay, here's my perspective on this. And maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm right, but like, here's what I'm feeling intuitively about it. How are you feeling? And then kind of just going back and forth and like really just kind of understanding that, the energy is changing, things are shifting, and, spirit's trying to communicate with us all on a different level. And, it's about really just kind of diving deep and figuring out how spirit communicates with you and like what those messages mean for you, because my messages and my symbols are completely different than yours, and I look at things differently. And it's just about finding that balance of like, what things mean to you and like how they're popping up, and like learning how to communicate with the other side, because I mean it's here,
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think the cool thing about I'm sorry, what was that?
I said I think everyone's probably having some really intense dreams right now,
Yeah. Right. And
have
I
to kind
think
of look at it.
you do. And, I remember having some really aggressive dreams, kind of like the one your girlfriend had about, someone in the closet and
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
creepy, right? And you're
right.
like,
Super
and
creepy.
you're being choked and you're being smothered, whatever it is. And I have had a couple, and I remember I was working with Theo at the time in the courses, and I had a chance to ask because I had a dream that was really aggressive and scary. And I've had like friends we had a whole thing where we talked about dreams a lot. And people sometimes will have dreams where someone's coming in their body, and they
Right.
feel it, or they well um I the biggest thing I learned from it was that even though the dream was about something completely different than what I figured out it all came down to the feeling. So it's sort of like, even though you have the witch in the closet with the yellow eyes and whatever,
Yeah,
um, or your hair's being pulled back, it's not
yeah,
necessarily about the witch itself. It's about your emotions and your feelings around. So what do you feel like when you see that? How does it
yeah,
feel? And I
yeah.
had one where I was like, the covers were, I literally was laying on my side, and it was one of those, dreams where you're like, it's so real that you
Yeah.
think it's really happening. And so somebody, a figure had come over, like just this ominous figure had come over, and it pulled the covers over my head, and it smothered me, and I couldn't get out, and I couldn't speak. And I was like, no. And I remember saying, no, 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 no. And I had a moment where I knew I had the power. So I said, no, 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 stop. And then I
Yeah.
woke up and I realized it was a dream, but it was so freaking real. And I was petrified. And I was like, oh my God, there's a ghost in my house, there's a spirit, blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
I did all this stuff, right? And then
Right.
I realized that all Theo asked me was, well, how did you feel? And I said, well, I felt trapped and like I couldn't breathe. And then they started thinking, well, where in your life do you feel that way? And I was
Yeah.
like, I knew exactly. It just hit me like that. I was like, I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I immediately, so there was power in that, but I
Yeah.
also recognized that really it's not about getting a book and saying, well, this means this and this means that. And sometimes that helps. Like if you see an animal show
Right.
up or like a beetle,
Yeah.
whatever, like there is symbolism there, but
Right.
generally it's really not all about the situation. Um, I mean,
It's
again, yeah, like how did I feel?
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
with her in her situation, I mean, so many things are shifting and changing in her life. Like she put in her 30-day notice at the place that she's at because it's just really, it's not a good place for her at all. And, there's kind of been some upheaval with her career, and she's been at this career for 8 years. And, things are getting a little bit more serious with us. And so there's a little bit more talk with like, should we join families and should we this? And so,
Mm,
there's uh her best friend of 6 years is guy crazy right now and choosing a guy over her, and it's just like a whole bunch of different things that are like popping off right now, and it's all weighing on her like heavily. And so I think the symbolism of all of that is just what's happening in her life, and she's feeling like she's
mm.
being suffocated.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
the
being
closest
pulled,
thing to her,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Well, when someone's choking you, it's you can't breathe, and you're being held down, and you feel trapped probably too.
yeah.
I know I
Mhm.
felt trapped. That was one of
Yeah.
the things that came out of that one for me. Yeah. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On top of, like I said, the portals being open and spirits actually, being more active and having more active role in our 3D and all of that stuff. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different things that like play into this, but it's just really, like you said, not being freaked out by it,
Yeah.
because the more freaked out we get, the more intense they get, and the more, crazier things can happen and things. But it's just really taking a look and being like, okay, this is what's going on in my life. This could be why this is popping up for me right now. Here's what I can do to better the situation.
Right. And spirit is really, that's the thing. It's kind of like I had a friend, we were talking about animals and communicating telepathically and doing things.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, we're on a tangent about something. And when you think about it, spirit doesn't really have a way of communicating with us except for through our dreams or through putting things in front of us energetically. And so
Mm-hmm.
like you yesterday, with the top ramen and like the kids and like everything not working, it's kind of like spirit saying, here's some symbols, here's some things we're trying to tell you, no, or whatever. So it's like paying attention to
Yeah.
what you're paying attention to. And usually you will find yourself paying attention to it. I've also noticed recently, just to, kind of keep going on that idea, is like, I've noticed that the more, and I've noticed this for years, but it's kind of like a game for me. I enjoy it. And some people might be like, you guys are weird. Like you actually, okay, this is what I was going to say earlier when you mentioned like doing the work. I remember
Yeah.
my husband saying to me, why are you always crying when you're like talking to your friends? And I'm like, well, because we're like working on problems. And he's like, but you're always crying about it. And I'm like, well, because we're releasing and we're healing, right? So we actually get off on like saying, okay, this is going on in my life, instead of burying it and being like, making, we like talk about it. And so we pull it out there and then we release it. And when you do it a few times, you're like, at first you're kind of like, it feels awkward and scary. You don't want to talk about, but then you're like, oh my God, I feel so amazing. And then you get addicted to it. It's like a drug. And so when we're actually crying or talking about deep things that normally people would never even talk about and just bury in their little chest for the rest of their lives, it's like what we do. And so, but anyway, I was going to say that because I thought that was interesting, because a lot of people who haven't done that, this is the time to start doing it, because it's if you keep continuing to bury it, you're just not going to be able to move forward easily. So if life is just constantly putting things in front of you, and that's the other thing rolling into that, is that like, if you're finding that you're not moving forward or you're not going anywhere, you need to do something to allow that energy to happen. It's something you're ignoring and not paying attention to. And so it'll come in your dreams, it'll come in like your car not working right, or people always doing the same thing to you and you don't know why. It's like, it's all there, all the signs are there, you just have to pay attention to them. And the fact that the veils are getting thinner and the truth is being easier to discover within relationships, and actually even just like in general, I so this is where my geeky spiritual person comes out, is I love it when spirit gives me signs. I love it so much. I'm like, you just said CERN, and I have to tell you, I have been doing I have a podcast I'm going to be putting up on YouTube. It's already on my podcast platform, but with a friend of mine who is really into the deep stuff, like the deep state and the dark hats and the white hats and all these things that I normally like, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's freaky. I don't want to go to that place, but she's sending me some stuff and we're having discussions and we're kind of looking at the multiverse and all these really deep kind of like ideas and things, and why is this happening? Why is that happening? The more I'm doing it, the more I'm recognizing that there's people just saying words that I never paid attention to. I never paid attention to CERN. I didn't even know what CERN was. I had to ask her. This was like 4 days ago, Mariah. And then the idea of the multiverse, the idea of just all these different things, and archangels being in different universes that are not the same as they are in our universe. Like it's been like, but all of a sudden now I'm like watching a video on something and I'll hear somebody say, I wonder how I can't, these are the two things I heard. I wonder how much reptilian blood they have. And I was like, what did you just say that? And it was about somebody who I've been watching them for a while and I've never heard them talk about this kind of stuff, but he just slipped it in. And then the other one said something about, it was an interview these two guys were doing. And the other one said something about,
it's so loud out here right now.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I can't hear it. So, you must be on aliens or something, where he just sort of like slipped it in, and then he kept talking about something else. And I was like, that is spirit giving me signs that I am not crazy. I'm on the right track, that this information I'm receiving, because I've been asking, can you please validate what I'm receiving? Because it feels like it's a step beyond my comfort zone, but I'm learning to, I'm open and receptive to seeing if it feels right, and I'm willing to take it on. And I'm noticing that, I don't know if you notice this, and then I'll be quiet, that I feel like we're up leveling and we're bringing new information that we're able now to comprehend. that
Yes.
we couldn't before. So it's all about a timing situation. And
Mhm.
depending on your spiritual growth and what you've done and your awareness and your openness will determine what comes to you when you're ready to hear it. And I feel like right now we're in an accelerated push. Even if you don't care or you
Yeah.
didn't do the work, it's going to be like right here anyway. And I'm seeing it in TV and in the movies and the series
Uh,
I watch. I'm like, AI, like all this AI. And I'm like, uh, anyway, so that's me. I've been noticing little so everywhere. So if you pay attention, if you're asking for spirit to give you answers and you start really just paying attention and picking up on things, it's not a coincidence.
no.
They're giving you signals of like, yeah. And the fact that you said CERN, I went, oh my God, spirit. I've never heard you talk about CERN.
No.
We've never talked about it. I didn't even know what it was until last week because I'm like, no. I don't talk about that stuff. I only talk about, the angels and the fairies and, the good stuff, the stuff that feels good, that helps you do better in your life and feel good.
Yeah.
That stuff I don't want to know about because I don't even want them to come near me.
Yeah.
But now that I'm aware of it, I feel like I have more power because I recognize what it is and it doesn't have power over me, but that's a whole nother story. But how do you, how are you feeling about that kind of stuff I just talked
You know,
about?
so I did a channeling a couple days ago, and Queen Aphrodite came through, and she was telling us that right now it's all about the duality of the dark and the light kind of coming together, and then really just realizing that we are all one, and that the darkness isn't necessarily like bad, right? It's like a part of the whole, right? And that it is needed in order for us to learn certain lessons and things like that. And so when it comes to things like that, I think it's just a matter of your, like I said, your perception and your perspective of how you're willing to look at that. Because if you're going at it as like, oh my God, this is freaky and this is bad and I don't know about this and da 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 da, you're going to find more situations that are going to come up that's going to amplify that for you, right? But if you're looking at it as like, wow, like, okay, if this is true and if this is something that could actually happen, and if this is really going on right now, maybe I should look at that, and maybe I should kind of widen my perspective and widen it and really be like, okay, so if they really are opening portals, and if they really are doing this stuff, and if you really want to look at the timelines and the dates of when they first activated it and what happened in the world, you really could kind of go down the rabbit hole of like, oh my goodness, like this could actually be a thing, it could be real. And if that's the case, like I really need to kind of look at things differently, because if this is actually happening in my world now, I would be a complete fool not to like look at this as from a bigger picture, right? So it just kind of depends on where you're at, and like where you're willing to open your mind and to look at things. Because if you don't want to believe in certain things and you want to kind of keep that like door closed and that limited mind, then that's fine, continue living your life that way. But if you want to open the door and be like, okay, well, if this is really what science is doing, this is really what's going on, then what if this or what if that? And it kind of gives you all these different perspectives and perceptions of like, oh my gosh, like I can see where this can coincide with this, and I can see where that can bring in this. And if this is really the case, like how powerful am I really? And where do things really lie? And maybe I should kind of veer down this direction or go down this rabbit hole or whatever. And then knowledge is power, and the more you learn about something and the more that you have an understanding of something, the more you can utilize it in your life to benefit your life.
Right.
So I'm willing and open to looking at
Yeah.
this moment.
Oh, good. Well, knowledge is power, and you're right. Like some of it's kind of like,
Out there.
but I just,
Well, if it's
but
true, wouldn't you want to have that knowledge, and wouldn't
mhm,
you the ones that are aware of what's going on, and like how could you use that to your benefit and make your life better?
absolutely. And I think that
Yeah.
if we've been burying our head in the sand for way
Far
too
too-
long. And a lot of stuff that we don't want to look at, whether it's in your personal life or in the world, it's got to be looked at,
Yeah.
the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And but the thing is, I've noticed is that um when I feel directed to focus on something, I'm leaning into, I always ask myself, well, I don't really have to go deep about it because I do this a lot. So I kind of like have a really good discernment around it. But if it's drawing my attention, that's something I'm supposed to pay attention to. That's
Right.
kind of how I look at it. And so if I'm going down a rabbit hole and I'm becoming crazy, that's a whole different,
Right.
like, well, put on the brakes, right? But if spirit's just sort of like throwing a little here and a little there, and I'm like going, oh,
Yeah, I should-
then yeah, then I feel like it's important information that I'm supposed to know.
right.
Um,
And who knows what you use that information for, how it's going to come up in conversation, or like who it's going to benefit, right? It
right.
may not be something for you. It may be strictly for your knowledge to help a client, right?
Right. Well, and some people get really freaked out and scared around the stuff and they don't realize that they're powerful. So during a session, you can, it's a teachable thing to work with, because
Or like
that's what they want. That's what they want. I mean, these energies want us to live in fear. They want us to stay where we are. They want us to think we don't have power. So as long as you know that you do and you call in, it's kind of like, yeah, I think you and I should do next time we talk, let's go deeper on some of this stuff because I think that it would be really fun. Because again, you and I've never really talked about it. And
talk
yeah,
aliens, talk all of it, Antarctica, the whole thing. We can talk about everything.
I saw a video yesterday where somebody had walked up to in Antarctica, walked up to a big cave that was made. You can tell it was man-made,
Yeah.
and it was like a hole.
Yeah.
And my friend had just told me, who is really into this stuff, well, there's all these secret things under the ground and they have these big machines that make big tunnels. And I was like, and then I saw somebody post that, like it came on my feed. Now, I already know my phone is creepy enough. It's listening to me all the time. But like I don't remember talking to her, talking with, I don't know, like I'm going, that's spirit. That's like giving me confirmation. But it's giving me to in ways that I'm willing to digest because spirit knows what I can digest and what I can. And if it's too much, it's not time, little bits at a time, and so you don't have to like take it all in and have all this knowledge and be all in it right away. And I also think that it's smart to recognize that this is what I discovered with this, is that I would not, I very clearly, because I channeled this yesterday, I did a little bit of typing and channeling some information around some of the heavier things that were triggering me. And what I got was you would not have received this information from us in the beginning. So when I first started getting into this work, it was very much high vibration, all angelic, and anything that wasn't of the highest vibration, I just said, you don't have power over me. So I never even touched it. It was just sort of like, don't even come in my vicinity. And which I think was the best way for me because I was willing. I didn't even believe, because I thought to myself, well, when I first started this work, I didn't even believe in angels. I was like, that's all, fairy talk. Oh, I was so practical. I was like, no, you guys people who believe in angels are nuts. They have stores with people with all kinds of angel stuff and people actually go there and buy stuff. Like they're kind of like, wrapped up in this crazy world. I had all of these judgments around it. And then when I started working with angels and realizing that they were real and they were giving me information, I was working with them, and the more I lean into that it's real, the more I get, right? So I figure if this is information that's triggering me, and I'm willing to be open and receptive, maybe it's like that story where it just takes time for me to integrate. And so I got very clearly yesterday that, and I'm sharing that because a lot of people out there might be like, it's too much, is it's okay to stay in your lane if it feels comfortable. Then tip your toes in and come back and dip your toes in if you want. But I know spirit said to me, you would not have accepted this information if you didn't already have the baseline foundation that you have, knowing that you have power over it.
That you're sovereign being of life. And
that
you're,
exactly.
listening right now and you guys like have some topics that you're like really wanting us to dive deep about, like please put it in the link or the comments below and let us know, because we're willing to talk about some things that you're interested about. You know what I mean? Like we can't read your minds. We don't really know what it is that you're wanting to know about. But if there's some topics that you're just like, I would really like a better understanding of this, like we will do our best to give it to you from our perspective, right? Because everyone has their own perspective. You know, this is what the whole message is about, right? So we will do our best to give you that information based on how we as light beings are perceiving it, using our intuition at the time.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly said. Yes, absolutely. Send us some questions. And I guess after this discussion with you, I recognize that we could really go anywhere.
Yeah.
We could do, you know, if someone has a question about extraterrestrials,
Mhm. Yeah.
things that, you know, like the multiverse, angels, spirit, you know, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
astrology. I mean, it
Yeah.
really,
We are.
but
Yeah.
it's all gonna start coming out. So we might as well. I recognize, Mariah, we're gonna start talking about things that I used to feel uncomfortable talking about.
Yeah.
And I literally haven't posted on YouTube yet. I have to tear the band-aid off because I was like, I put it on my podcast because I was like, that feels comfortable.
Yeah.
But I video our conversation and through this one, and I'm like, I'm ready to rip off the band-aid, but putting it out there for me is like a little uncomfortable because I'm like,
Yeah.
will people think I'm crazy? Will I lose people? But I
Yeah.
guess I have to just put it out there. And I guess that's my message to you guys. If you have questions, like Mariah says, that are, even if you think they're crazy, we're crazy. So we'll talk about it. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I felt about my channeling for a long time. I didn't want people knowing about it, right? Because I'm all more, people already call me crazy, let alone, you know, leaving my body to trans channel, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? uh we're at the point now, I'm like, I really don't care, like call me the crazy witch, like I am, you know. Like it
Well,
doesn't.
obviously you're a crazy witch because your girlfriend had a dream about you in the
I
closet. But no, that was
like
your alter ego, right? No, like just kidding. I'm joking.
twice, dude, like I killed her twice.
With your yellow eyes. Ugh, that's creepy. Ugh.
You love flowy dresses, I'm like, don't ruin that for me.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks, Mariah. This is fun. We'll put it up and we'll put our links below and yeah, and how you can contact us with your questions. So hopefully we'll have some for next time. All
Till
right. Bye bye, everyone. You get, yep, bye.
next